Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk about your home recording studio. Today, I want to take a look at the effects of speaker placement relative to a wall. Now this is kind of a bit of a follow-up to a video I did several months ago about monitor placement in your home studio. And I said that I would fiddle around with a front-ported and a rear-ported speaker and just get an idea of their proximity to a wall. Do they do better or worse? Close to the wall? Far away from the wall? What kind of a difference does it actually make? But since I'm gonna be unplugging and rewiring stuff, I figured, hey, this would be a perfect opportunity to get the speakers out of their place and maybe find a place in this room here where I can experiment with putting them close to the wall, far away from the wall, do some measurements with Room EQ Wizard and see what kind of a difference it actually makes. I'll be using Room EQ Wizard and just doing a frequency or a sine wave sweep. And I'll be measuring with Behringer's cheapy measurement microphone. I think these run about, I don't know, between $60 and $80. This is an omnidirectional condenser microphone. Well, with no further ado, let me get things set up and I'll see you on the other side of the room. Okay, I've got things just kind of in a rough setup here. I gotta talk for just a minute here. I gotta wait for the HVAC to turn off. It's a cold April day here in Denver. And it might take a minute or two for the heater to shut off. But I have the measurement microphone, which is in this kind of example is just going to represent our ears, our listening position. So I have it just kind of, I think I measured about 36 inches, 38 inches away from the speaker, from the front of the speaker, pointing at the tweeter of the speaker here. The tweeter of the speaker is about 39 inches off the ground. The microphone is about the same. And I'm doing this all kind of roughly here. All right, and the heater just kicked off. So I am going to do my first sine wave sweep, and let's see how this goes. Here we go. Let's do 1/12 smoothing. There we go. And so you can see, I've got some issues in this room, that's for sure, in the low end. And you can see there's a pretty stiff peak here at about 60 hertz. Got a pretty big null here at a little over 100 hertz. And then kind of back up to another peak at, I don't know, maybe around 150 or so. Or what is that? Yeah, 150 hertz. Another null at 230 hertz. So this is the kind of thing that makes it difficult to hear what you're doing and make critical decisions. And this room being a concrete floor and a couple of concrete walls and kind of minimal amounts of trapping, plus the speaker is not sitting where all of my minimal trapping is geared towards preventing a lot of these reflections. So yeah, it's not a good looking graph here. The ideal graph would kind of gently, or steeply slope up from, the 20 hertz to whatever the minimum frequency response of the speaker is, and then stay pretty flat all the way across here. And as you can see, that does not happen. But at least that's kind of a baseline. So I want to scoot the speaker out away from the wall, but that's not only going to change the relationship between the speaker and the wall, but it's also going to change the relationship between the speaker and the listening position. I honestly am not sure what to do here. Do I leave the listening position alone and just move the speaker, or do I keep them at the same distance from each other and move them both? I think I'm gonna keep the microphone in the same spot, and let's just pull the speaker away from the wall. It's gonna make it louder to the microphone, but hopefully everything will be louder within scale of one another. All right, let's give it a try. We can see, so that last measurement is the one in green compared to the first one, which is in red. So we can see a lot of the peaks are just higher, which means, so yeah, it was louder. Funny thing is this, 60 hertz peak didn't change. So all in all, it's not any flatter. Like distancing another, 6 inches, 7 inches away from the wall didn't flatten it out really. So let's pull it even farther away from the wall, see what happens. Okay, right there, that's about 18.5 inches away from the wall. Let's give it a try. All right, let's smooth that out a little bit so we can see what the heck it's telling us. It's definitely louder, and this, yeah, this is very interesting. That at that listening position, all three positions have the same lowest kind of fundamental peak. And so the measurement we just took is in blue here, but look at that. It did smooth out that huge null right there. So let's just look at the blue, and that is considerably flatter. Like that huge null is taken care of. That null at oh, where was that on the first one? So we had a null at about 110 hertz or so, or yeah, 105 hertz. We had a null at 229 hertz, and both of those actually did flatten out. That's pretty impressive. And now the speaker is closer to the microphone, so everything's louder. So this is just a louder sweep. We still have this kind of, this started to introduce some sort of a funky thing here in the mids, but let's scoot it out a little bit farther and see what happens. Okay, so now it is about 29 and a half inches from the wall. But now the speaker is only about 9 inches from the microphone. And the microphone's pointed right at the tweeter. So I'm not exactly sure the validity. This has all just been experimenting. And at this point, so close, I'm not exactly sure how accurate this reading or any of these readings are gonna be. Let's give it a try and see. All right, interesting. Okay, so let's get rid of the original. Let's just compare the last two measurements here. And I would say that's even flatter. Like the low end there is remarkably flat. Now we're starting to get some more kind of weirdness up here in the mids and upper mids and everything. So this is actually very interesting. So this is a rear ported speaker, and its response definitely did flatten out, moving it away from the wall. That's really good to know. So let's repeat this experiment with an Atom A7X, which is a front ported speaker, and let's see if it kind of behaves in the same way. All right, let's switch them on. There we go. Oh yeah, let me make sure none of the room correction stuff is on. I don't think it is. Nope, everything's straight up the middle. Okay, looks pretty similar here. Even though it's an extra about ½ inch from the wall. Still got a big old peak right around 60 hertz. Big old null right around 105 hertz. And then another peak, 150 hertz. Another null, 230 hertz. And then it's just kind of all over the place from there on out. All right, let's scoot it out 9.5 inches from the wall and see how it does. Actually, first, let's compare this just directly against the HS80M. And the HS80M just being a larger speaker and a larger enclosure, like, yeah, it reaches down farther. So we would expect to see information here where the A7X does not. But they're both suffering from this same big old peak, big old null, another not quite as big peak, another not quite as big null. And I think most of the rest of this can just be attributed to the kind of character or personality of the speaker. All right, let's scoot them out 9.5 inches from the wall, give it another try. All right, that's pretty close. And when I say how far it is from the wall, that's from the rear of the enclosure, not the front of the enclosure. Just how big is the gap behind the speaker. All right, that did not flatten out very much at all. I think that's still pretty similar to here's the HS80M. And yeah, they're both behaving very similarly in the low end here, below about 300-400 hertz. So far the rear ports haven't the front ports haven't behaved any more conveniently, depending on their proximity to the wall. They're behaving just as poorly as the rear ported speakers did. Interesting. Let's scoot it out and try it again. My goodness, yeah, that huge null leveled out and this huge null leveled out. So let's look at that against the previous measurement, same speaker, previous measurement. That huge null, just like an extra 10 inches from the wall, it flattened out this giant null. And so now the peaks are much closer in relationship to the rest of the signal. And it flattened out this huge null and this huge null, that's pretty remarkable. Just another 10 inches did a lot of favors for our low end. And so let's get rid of the previous measurement. This is the measurement we just took. Let's look at the HS80M at the same distance from the wall. And yeah, same kind of thing. So the rear ports definitely still had a deeper kind of null here. The front ports are starting to level out a little bit better. But for the most part, you know, they're behaving pretty much the same as well. Very interesting. All right, this is cool. I'm excited about this. All right, so let's scoot it out as far as we can. And that was, what, about 29.5 inches from the wall? Let's try that. All right, and yeah, and you know, the same as with the other speaker, like the microphone is just so close to the front of the speaker here. We're, yeah, about 9.5 inches away from the front of the speaker, so this one might be a little skewed towards whatever the tweeter's doing. And oh my goodness, yeah, look at that low end, you know, between 57 hertz and the next peak at 150 hertz. That is so much flatter. Like, that is going to be so much easier to deal with when mixing low end and making low end decisions. That's amazing. I mean, we still have, you know, a bunch of weirdness up here, but these frequencies, you know, above about 600 hertz or so, are much easier to deal with trapping, with acoustical treatment inside your room. It's those really low frequencies that have so much energy in them. Those are the ones that hurt us in these small home recording studios. So that is pretty darn cool. And it also makes me a little sad that I don't have the flexibility in this room to bring my desk out away from the wall, because I've got this door here that I still have to be able to open and close. And this desk is so wide that I have to keep it pushed all the way against the wall to be able to operate that door, and also to save floor space out in the room and be able to, you know, set up a drum kit or drag out a guitar and some pedals and, you know, all that stuff. So in my next room, whenever we're eventually going to refinish this basement room here, in my next room, that's definitely going to be a priority, is the flexibility to put the desk wherever I need it to be. No doors, no windows, no closets, no soffits or any weird build-ins or anything to have to work around, just to be able to put the desk where the desk needs to be. And oh man, it's gonna make my life so much easier. All right, I have one more thing that I wanna try, and then I think I'll call this quits for tonight. I wanna see if the MoPads actually make any difference at all. Now, I have 2 sets of these Auralex MoPads. They're just Auralex foam. If you haven't seen them before, you've probably seen them, know what they are. So they're supposed to isolate, decouple from the surface that the speaker is setting upon. And this is just an MDF desk, so it's very dense, and it's also, you know, it's large. It's a big surface here. Also, this entire cart here is just a big empty resonant chamber. So let's see if decoupling the speaker from this thing makes any difference whatsoever. Putting them on those MoPads did more than one thing. It changed more than one variable. It did decouple it from the desk, but it also raised it by, what are those? Those are, you know, over 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches thick. And as we've seen, changing the speaker's position by even a few inches can have effects on how the speaker interacts with the room. So it's 2 inches closer to the ceiling. It's 2 inches farther from the floor. And who knows how much of a difference just that makes, and how much of a difference just decoupling it from the desk makes. Okay, so let's see if decoupling it made any differences whatsoever. So this is the A7X decoupled. It's on the MoPads, and you know, you can still see we got a big old nasty peak, big nasty null, another nasty peak, another nasty null, blah blah blah. So let's put that up against the original measurement without the MoPad. So same distance from the wall. Oh my goodness, look at that. The low end is almost identical. Like, it's smoothed out a little bit, you know, at 130 hertz. The null here isn't quite so bad at 230 hertz, but like, honestly, this didn't make any functional difference whatsoever. So I remain unconvinced that decoupling your speakers from your desk is going to make any meaningful difference. And we just saw changing your speaker's position in the room, that can make a meaningful difference. So I have one more thing I want to try. And one thing that I see people, go on about as well is actually like reflections off of the desk. We go to all these pains to put absorbers that are left and right and top and rear first reflection points. But we have this big, dense desk that is highly reflective at probably almost all frequencies. This desk is MDF. It's very dense, very heavy, so it's probably relatively reflective, I don't know, down to maybe as low as a couple hundred hertz. So I have a few squares here of Auralex. This is the name brand Auralex foam. These are the wedges, like the 1 inch or 1.5 inches, I don't know, that you'd find at all the music retailers. I got a whole box of this stuff, and I never put it up in here. I probably should. They do actually a pretty good job of, mid and upper frequency absorption. So let's see if putting a couple of these in front of, on the desk surface in front of the speaker, it makes any meaningful difference to prevent reflections coming off the speaker and causing weird acoustical stuff to happen. Let's give it a try and see. All right, I'm not gonna do this in any artful sort of a way. I'm just gonna see how many fit here. Looks like about 2 is all I'm gonna get, because the others are just gonna fall off if can't even balance them on there. Okay, so 2, and let's scoot them out a little bit farther to give those reflections a chance to actually get caught. All right, let's give it a try, see if this makes any difference. All right, so let's put that up against our previous measurement. So, it's still on the MoPads. Here it was before. And you know what? So, of course, no difference in the low end whatsoever. And of course, it's picking such similar colors. Sorry, one's blue, one's purple. The newer measurement's purple. But it did make some differences here, like starting, I'd say the differences get significant enough to even mention, over 500 hertz. And I can't say that it like necessarily flattened it out at all, but it did change the response from 500 hertz onwards. And that's the only thing that changed. The microphone position didn't change. The speaker position didn't change. Only the Auralex and on the desk surface. So I can't really say that that's better or worse. So there's the original, just the MoPads, no Auralex. There's the Auralex, now highlighted in yellow. And it's not any better or worse. It may be a little flatter up here in that 1K to 2K kind of region. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't really say that that's a huge significant difference to me, in my opinion at least. Maybe with the types of things that you work on, maybe with your sensitivities, and maybe that is a significant difference for you. But it is kind of actually cool to actually see a little bit of a graphical representation of, how these things affect how your speaker sounds. And that's the bottom line, is how does it sound to you in your room on your mixes? Is it making a significant enough difference for that to be something for you to work out how to do in your own room? This has been really interesting. I went into this really not knowing what to expect of whether or not it's going to make a huge difference. So I think the conclusions I can draw here are whether your monitors are front ported or rear ported, they are going to be greatly affected by the distance from the wall. And I have a feeling it's going to be worth, if your room allows it, if your layout allows it, to experiment a little with just taking your speakers, your listening position, your desk and everything, and experimenting with different distances from the wall. Do some listening tests. These measurements, they're just measurements, right? They're not telling us really how it sounds. They're giving us, an idea. We can extrapolate from what we see to what we would expect to hear. And I do know for a fact that the low end of this room is a mess. It's a total disaster. And it's very difficult for me to make critical decisions about bass guitars and kick drums and synthesizers and things like that. That's why I ended up picking up a good pair of headphones for myself for Christmas this year, just to take the room out of the equation. I got some open back headphones. And I reference those when I'm trying to make those decisions, because this room just lies to me. It's difficult and it's frustrating. And knowing what we know now, we can make it less frustrating if you're having the same troubles with the low end in your room. You know, don't be afraid, you know, see what happens if you get everything closer to the wall, if you get everything up farther away from the wall. Now your listening position is going to have to move with it, and all your acoustical treatment is going to have to move with it as well. So I know it's no small thing, but if it can make that dramatic of a difference and flatten out the low end response of our room, it might just be worth it. All right, well, thank you all so much for hanging with me this long. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody that's watching, liking, subscribing, and doing all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Let us know down in the comments below your own, you know, experiments and your own findings and everything with stuff like this. What have you been able to change in your room to make real significant difference in the response of your room? All right, well, I think that is going to do it for me this time, and I'll see you guys again next time.